Welcome to Executive Education in Sustainable Fashion. Today we're going to talk to Francois Souchet about the work that he is doing at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, trying to convert the industry into a circular economy.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Executive Program in Sustainable Fashion. I'm very delighted to be joined here by Francois Souchet, here from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So maybe we'll start off with just giving us a bit introduction, how you became part of the foundation and a little bit of your background.
So I have a background in engineering and project management, and through my studies I became very interested in how can we build an economy that actually works for the long term, both from an economic perspective but also for everything that comes around, the social, the environmental aspect that are linked to it. And when I learned about the circular economy, I really found that this was a model that was actually answering that question. What could be this potential model? And that's how I found out about the foundation, and that's how I joined them.
Super. So thinking about what circular economy is, how would you really framework it or describe it? And why is it really important for us to really think about this circular economy now in fashion?
I think the best way to think about the circular economy is to contrast it with the economy that we currently have. Today, the way the economy works is extremely linear. We take materials off the ground, we extract materials, basically, we transform them into products that we use less and less before discarding them mostly in the landfill. So that's very linear. We just go throughput and throughput and throughput. And in a linear economy, actually, in a circular economy, so when you move from a linear economy to a circular economy, basically you do three things mostly. The first one is when you design your product, you don't think only about how that product looks, but you look at how that product fits within a system. You design out waste and pollution by just thinking about your product and the system it fits in a different way. The second thing you do is you ensure that the products that you make and where you put a lot of effort to actually manufacture, engineering, transport those products, you ensure that those products stay in use for as long as possible. And the last thing is, if you are dependent on resources that you can grow, basically, like agricultural output, for example, you basically ensure that the way you grow those is done in a regenerative way. So basically, you can grow it over and over and over again.
So it sounds like there's like three impacts or touch points within this circular economy that you can address. So thinking about that foundation, what is the mission, or what is the sort of the foundation really hoping to achieve and address and be a part of this new solution?
So the foundation was established the Ellen MacArthur Foundation was established in 2010 with a simple mission: accelerate the transition to a circular economy. So our sole purpose is to really support business, governments, and educators in accelerating that transition to a circular economy. So we work with businesses on what are the pre-competitive collaboration that you could undertake to really move towards a circular economy, and what are the industry-wide solutions that you could implement at your own scale that would really mean that would be really meaningful in the transition to a circular economy. We bring also cities and governments around the table so they can understand what this transition means and think about the policies that they can implement. And the last thing we do is inspire the next generation of leaders, whether it's in design, in business, in engineering. We really want to give them the tool to think differently about how the economy should work.
So it's really like a support network, it's a resource, it's really a go-to to be able to, as a company or as a business, an executive, or even as a student, to get knowledge about how they can be more circular.
Absolutely.
So what sort of steps do you think in the fashion industry or for companies they could be taking? I know you've mentioned a few already, but maybe you can expand a little bit on what sort of steps can the fashion industry take to be even more circular?
So maybe the first thing we can do is think about what circular economy means for the fashion industry. So when we think about a circular fashion industry, we basically think of a fashion industry where clothes are made from safe and renewable materials, are used a lot more than they are today, and never become waste. And when we looked at how the fashion industry works today, it really doesn't work like that. The production of clothes doubled over the past 15 years, while the average number of time we used the clothes that we wear decreased by close to 40%.
Oh, wow.
So we use less and less, we produce more and more. Every year there's over 70% of the clothes that we have that end up in a landfill or incinerated. That's a rate of approximately a truckload going to landfill or incineration every second.
Wow.
And most of the materials that are inputted in the industry are basically oil-based and non-renewable, and at times even harmful. Like if you think about non-iron shirts, like those shirts that are very convenient actually. Well, the molecule that makes them non-iron has been classified by the World Health Organization as a potential cancerogenic, and has been added to the list of banned chemicals from the European Union. So really this idea of a circular fashion industry is clothes made from safe and renewable materials, used more, never become waste.
So you've been working with, I know, a lot of big organizations as well as small organizations, but maybe thinking about some of the big organizations and partnerships you've been working with. What are some of the things they're really addressing? Or I don't know if you can share some examples of some of the organizations and partnerships you've been working with the foundation.
Fundamentally, the first thing the organization do in general is have this moment of realization. So you realize that actually this new model that you look at makes a lot of sense for who you are. And once you do that, the key things organizations are doing is trying it out. So doing a few pilots, experimenting, absolutely. So if you just take one example, you could see, for example, for H&M, they've piloted a repair store in their Paris flagship that enables them to see how their customers react to those new type of offerings, to understand how that fits within their current offering, etc. So really this idea of piloting, but also this idea of understanding what are the more bold steps that you can take, and that's what we work on with them. It's okay, well, how can you do things that are meaningful and have enough scale to really create impact?
Of course.
And what level of ambition should we have in the steps that we take moving forward, so that actually we start properly mitigating the potential impact of the industry. So when we looked at the current trajectory on which the industry is and what impact it could have, we realized that by 2050, the fashion industry could represent 25% of the carbon budget allocated with the Paris ambition, basically. So that's gigantic.
That's big, yeah.
And so if you think about that kind of exponential impact that it can have, what are the exponential solutions that should be developed in parallel to start really preventing that from happening?
So it's all about the foundation really wants to make that long-term impact, that long-term being responsible and accountable, but then really making a solution. And so as a larger organization, what about smaller organizations or new business models like the Real or different sort of methods and system that they've incorporated in that system?
Yeah. So if for small organizations, what's very interesting is they have, in a way, more flexibility because their businesses are not as solidified as large organizations, but because they have smaller teams, any effort actually requires a lot more proportionally from the organization. When we think about small organization, what they can do, the first thing is bring your customer on the journey. Usually if you're an SME, you have a closer relationship to your customers.
Clients,
So how do you bring them on the journey that you start to undertake? The second thing you can do, and the thing that will have the most impact, is to really think about your product. How do you design your product? And when you design that product, do you think about how it's going to be used? Do you think about how long it's going to be used? How can you make sure that this product can be used, reused, repaired, and resold? And when you design that product also, do you think about what's next for it? Do you think about what is going to happen to that product once people stop using it? Is it going to be recycled? Is the fabric just going to be recovered? What do you see happening to that product? And the last point that you can do if you're a small business is don't do it alone. Think about the partnerships
Sure,
that
yeah.
you can have. There are people who are specialized in reverse logistics. There are people who are specialized in different business models, for example. And a good partnership that we saw is, we actually saw quite a few, but you have, for example, Reformation and ThreadUp who partner
Yes.
together. So Reformation is a young fashion brand. ThreadUp is a second-hand online store, and basically they have this partnership where if you bring some Reformation clothes on ThreadUp, you actually get a discount on the new Reformation. And Stella McCartney and the Real Real being an online luxury consignment website, have the same type of partnerships. If you bring some Stella McCartney and ensure that they have a second life, you actually get a discount to Stella.
So it sounds like, for us to be able to, create this circular economy and create stronger impact, we have to really share resources. We have to work together as a community, and really together we can make a huge difference. And that seems to be where the foundation is really placed at this point in time.
Exactly.
So what are some of the challenges, though, of course, when anything you try to think of as a new business model, or when you're looking into this type of circular economy, what are some of the challenges and how can we overcome them?
Yeah. So the main thing for us is really to bring people to realize that if you want to move towards a circular economy, it's a massive opportunity. It's an economic opportunity to do better business, fundamentally. It's an opportunity also to reconnect with your customer. Customers are evolving, and the pace at which a lot of the brands are evolving is slower than the pace at which their customers are evolving. So how do you reconnect with them? And the last point is also proactively meet potential future regulations, especially in Europe, in the UK, where policymakers start to make real movement towards circular economy. So that opportunity, we feel, is the most important thing companies need to grasp, because once you sense that it's a big opportunity, no challenge is too big to not overcome, right?
Of course.
Now, the challenge that you face, especially with large corporations, are the kind of classic transformation challenge that you would face in any organization transformation, right? So change management, convincing senior stakeholder, the question of, well, if we want to move towards a new business model where we embrace vintage or second-hand or rental, what are the cannibalization risks that we can have? What are the potential reaction of our customers? And also, one of the key challenges also is that you have some solutions that are available. So if you think about better materials or recycled materials, the key challenge today is that those materials are significantly more expensive than virgin ones. And when you look at, I was reading something this morning that was saying the price between standard cotton and organic cotton is 3 to 5 times higher. So those are significant differences, and companies who want to embrace those solutions have to assess what's the business case for it, what's the kind of, how can you market that, how can you actually protect your business and your margins while embracing those solutions. And coming back to the power of coming together to really affect change, well, if you come together, the economies of scale that you have on some of those solutions will be realized much faster, because actually the demand for them, of course, will be stimulated at a much broader way than if you're just one company trying to do it on your own.
Yeah, and if you're doing it as a group, then that noise and that
exactly
that awareness becomes greater.
And when everybody does it, the sort of first mover risk, like being the one who stands out of the pack, is kind of diminished. So if everyone does it and the bar is raised for everyone, then everyone's got still a similar cost structure, so it doesn't necessarily impact competition as much.
So thinking about, and I think you touched on it a little bit, you have the consumer and the companies, and sometimes the companies are a little bit ahead of it, sometimes the consumers are wanting it a bit more. Where do you see that sort of yin and yang happening? Is it really for the customer and the company to work together? Is it more like the company putting it out there? Is it the consumer wanting it as a value and a need?
So when you look at what drives consumer behavior, price and convenience are the top two. And they come way ahead of any sort of other consideration. And if price and convenience are not here, sustainability is still important, but it's no longer really a decision factor.
Okay.
So what brands have to do is to innovate towards a better model, keeping in mind that what will make their customer willing to keep on coming back is that notion of price and convenience, which is why you have like, for example, companies like Rent the Runway that are very successful because the convenience of not having to browse, not having to pay every time, not having to think about what you can wear, that potential they have to suggest items for you, and now that they have stores in New York City, you can just go after the gym, select your outfit of the day, and off you go. That convenience is appealing to a lot of people, and when you have surveys asking, "Oh, why do you choose Unlimited by Rent the Runway?" people are saying it's just much more convenient. It just takes up the pain of having to shop, having to think about how you're going to look. It's there.
So thinking about the future of the fashion industry in this circular economy, what are you hoping as a foundation to really try to move that forward, in which direction and how?
Yeah, so for us, the guiding light is to really keep that vision in mind. That vision where clothes are made from safe and renewable materials, are used more and never become waste. And what we hope is that we can create a thriving industry where businesses still have enormous economic opportunities, where the clothes that we produce are used more and are circulated between people. So let's say I like to wear my jeans quite new. Some people like to wear their jeans quite old. Well, you can actually, instead of like aging them, you can actually circulate them. A company called Redone in LA is doing it very well. They take vintage Levi's, and one of the thing that prevents some people from going to vintage is the fact that the fabric is a bit looser, and so the cut is not as sharp. What they do is they completely rework the cut of those jeans, sell them again, and so actually it's a vintage aspect, but with a like beautiful cut. So when we think about how a circular economy is going to look, it's going to be a lot of small businesses, a lot of innovation, a lot of opportunities to do things with the materials that are already in circulation, and a lot of opportunities coming from understanding the difference between new to you and new to the world. And actually new to you is more important.
So if I'm a company out there, if I'm a senior executive, and I want to be involved in the foundation or find out how can I be working with you as a partner, is there certain guidelines? Do you look for anything particularly in a company? Is it some sort of measure you're looking for?
Yeah, for us, what's really important when we work with businesses is to have a shared direction of travel. So if we share the same vision, for us, that's the fundamental aspect. So if you believe in a circular economy, if you believe that this vision we have for the future of the industry is right and something you aspire to move towards, that's the main thing we want. The second thing that we are interested in is also to understand what, as a business, you are ready to do to move towards the circular economy. So either what's your existing track record, or what are the things that you plan or you envision to do in your business to actually move towards there. Because for us, what's really important is to have partners who want to take actions, who want to do and make this vision happen.
I think you're right about that. That taking action is now the biggest next step.
Absolutely.
And we're aware of it. We believe in it. The knowledge is out there, and it's now making it something tangible and actionable.
Absolutely.
So we can make that change.
Yeah, and that's one thing we've done when we worked as a foundation with the plastics packaging industry. So we had a similar initiative to the one on fashion with the plastics packaging industry that started 2 years earlier. So it's now much more advanced. And what they have done is they have actually mobilized a global commitment from 20% of the plastics packaging industry to ensure that the packaging they put on the market is reusable, compostable, or recyclable. And that's global. And in addition to that, there are also governments who have implemented Plastics Pact that basically take those commitments at a national level and put together the mechanism to make it happen.
Wow.
So that you start to really see then an industry movement towards the vision, which is what we're interested in.
So yeah, so thinking about that sort of, that sort of timeline of becoming circular, as a company. I mean, it must be quite varied based on the organisation and based on what they're trying to implement. But is there sort of a not a deadline, but like you can keep going on and on and on.
Yeah.
But then when do you get to a point where you be saying, hang on a sec?
Yeah. So the kind of thinking we have around how do you really change an industry, we see that as a sort of 10-year period, right? So if you really want to be able to impact how the industry works, you need 10 years. You need around 3 years to understand what are the solutions that you should prioritize, implement at scale, and how they're going to be implemented. And then you need another 7 years to make those happen.
Yeah, because I think some executives or companies, they get quite pressured in thinking, what do I have to do tomorrow?
Yeah.
But I think the key thing is to be reflective on what are you doing now for the whole organization, using the support from the foundation or other resources and methods,
Absolutely.
and then plan a bit more ahead. That seems like what the foundation like to support.
Absolutely. So what we always say when people join us that we're not interested in incremental change. We're not interested in what you can do tomorrow that will improve your bottom line or like your CO2 emission a tiny bit, but actually won't really add up to real change. What we are interested in is thinking about what are the steps that you can take that may take 2 years to mobilize, 3 years to mobilize, but that will add up to significant change. And so that really is what we're interested in. What are the hard problems to solve? What are the kind of big, hairy problem where there's no obvious solutions? And what are the things that industry can do in a kind of longer period of time to really change that?
So just some advice for the audience. We're going to have executives and students. And what are some of some advice you would give them, from 3 or 4 key principles to say this is what you need to think about in your organization or in what you're doing?
So I think the first thing you can think about is how do you design your product and how do you design the system that goes around. So basically, is your product going to be something that people only want to wear a short period of time or something that they want to love for a long time? And based on that, what's the business model that can support it? What are the materials that you should use in it? And what happens to it once you stop using it? So I think those questions are the key ones you need to ask and to start answering for your company. And once you start answering them, you can connect the dots between how do you design, how do you make business, and what are the partnerships that you can take so that this product, what you decide for its next, is actually happening. What you actually want to achieve through its life is also happening.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Francois, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for the amazing work you're doing with the foundation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jason.
Thank you for joining us, and please keep this conversation going offline through WeChat, and please provide any questions that you want us to answer.
Thanks for watching. Now join us online and on social media with our experts so we can answer your questions directly and keep this conversation going.